Though the Targaryens had forged the Seven Kingdoms in fire and blood, they didn't govern with them. Until they did. Maegor, first of his name, defined council as confirmation and disagreement as treason. 3 Grand Maesters tried to avert disaster. Instead of taking their advice, Maegor took their heads. As a second son and exile, Maegor was never meant to rule. But no sooner did Maegor hear of his brother's death than he flew Balerion to Dragonstone and demanded the crown. Only the Grand Maester dared object that the throne should pass to his older brother's firstborn son, Prince Aegon. Maegor insisted that the Iron Throne should go to the man with the strength to seize it, and beheaded the Grand Maester. Prince Aegon soon took him at his word. He claimed his father's dragon, raised a host of Westermen, and marched on King's Landing while Maegor was in Old Town. Far from the capital, Maegor couldn't rally an army to match Aegon's. So he ordered his banners to swarm Aegon's larger army from all sides, confusing the young prince and slowing his advance. Beneath the god's eye, Maegor's disparate forces came together and attacked Aegon as Maegor himself swooped down from the clouds. For the first time since the doom of Valyria, dragon fought dragon in the sky. But Aegon's dragon was no match for Balerion the Dread, who was 4 times its size. When Aegon fell to his death, his army broke and fled. For slaying his own nephew, Maegor forever after became known as the Cruel, though of course, not to his face. The next Grand Maester dared object to Maegor taking a 3rd wife, when taking his 2nd wife had ruined his brother's reign, because Maegor's 1st wife was the niece of the High Septon. But Maegor beheaded the Grand Maester and declared war on the Faith. He set fire to the Riverlands, the Westerlands, and the Reach in a campaign to root out disloyal lords, and sponsored a more pliant High Septon. None of it worked. Maegor may have returned to the capital with 2,000 skulls of the Faith militant, but most of them weren't soldiers. They were simple folk who had sheltered the outlaw Septons, or turned out in droves to hear them denounce the wicked king. The 3rd Grand Maester dared to declare Maegor the father of his own heir. But when his 2nd wife miscarried, and Maegor saw the monstrous stillbirth, Maegor beheaded the Grand Maester for his insolent adherence to truth. So he had no one to warn him when his 3rd wife, sensing an advantage, declared that his 2nd wife had been unfaithful, and produced a list of potential fathers of the misshapen child. Not only did Maegor execute his 2nd wife and her father, his own Hand of the King, but he also marched on her family's castle and slaughtered everyone who bore a drop of her family's blood. But his 3rd wife couldn't give him a child either. Desperate to cement his stolen throne with an heir, Maegor took 3 wives at once, known as the Black Brides because each were women he'd widowed in his wars. All 3 women grew full with child in time, but each gave birth to the same twisted monstrosities as his 2nd wife. One need not be a maester, much less a Grand Maester, to deduce the common thread here. Though Maegor stamped out the fires of rebellion, his cruelty and fear only scattered more tinder over the realm until even the smallest ember could set the realm alight. One day, the Faith militant emerged from the shadows, and the lords sent to quash it joined it instead. His Hand resigned and retired to his island home. Finally, House Baratheon declared for Maegor's own nephew as the rightful king. The Lannisters, Tyrells, and Arryns soon joined, adding more than half the might of Westeros to the prince and his 2 dragons, which became 3 when Maegor's niece and involuntary Black Bride stole away from the Red Keep with her dragon. Her treason wasn't even the last. Maegor's own Lord Admiral sailed the royal fleet into his nephew's harbor, but most fitting of all, when Maegor tried to send ravens to call his banners, he found that his 4th Grand Maester had learned from his predecessors and fled. Maegor spent one final night on the Iron Throne. He was found in the morning, with his wrists slashed and one of the throne's blades jutting from his throat. Nobody knows if it was one of his queens, or Kingsguard, or one of the thousands who wanted him dead, or even Maegor himself, frustrated that his body had failed his will. Whoever the culprit, no doubt he died as all tyrants do, believing that history would vindicate him. It hasn't. History may be written with fire and blood, but histories aren't. As any good advisor could have warned him.